Happy Wednesday. This is episode 25, and today I want to talk to you about my coming out. Coming out for anyone in the LGBTQ plus community doesn't always look the same. Sometimes is a very beautiful experience because you get the support of all your loved ones, your family, and your friends. But then there's moments where you don't have that happy story and or that beautiful experience, and then you realize that if we go back in time, a lot of individuals, for the most part, didn't have a beautiful coming out story. Now, into recent years, we see it a little bit more frequent where you do see these beautiful outcomes. Today, I want to talk to you about my experience because I feel that if you in this moment are thinking about coming out, or you're not ready, or you fully don't accept yourself, understand that even though my coming out story was very sad and very difficult, and on the in the long run, it made me who I am, and I'm grateful for that. So whenever I was in high school, I did feel that I fell in love at the end of my maybe junior year going into senior year. But of course, now that I look back, I can tell you that that was in love. But in that moment, I did feel that I was in love. So whenever someone that young is going through uh, through that process, you begin to be a little bit more quiet, more reserved. You're daydreaming more, and the people around you begin to notice, your family, your friends, and of course questions come along. Hey, what's going on? And then you begin to share what you're feeling. And I remember that I came out to my close friends first, and I got full support. It was a few of my friends. They were very accepting and made me feel comfortable. I remember that my one of my best friends, he was like, "Hey, um, whenever I decided that it was time to share that with my sisters, he was like, I want to be there with you, whenever you decide to tell the girls." So we decided that we were going to tell one sister first. And when we met with her here at the house, whenever I shared that about me, she automatically thought I was playing. And then my friend, kind of reaffirmed everything, and that's when she believed it, and she didn't react the way that I expected. There was a lot of crying. We kind of like stopped communication for about 3 weeks. I think that was time for her to kind of think everything through and to see put all her thoughts in line. And but after that, I got really scared, and I didn't want to tell the rest of the girls. And my friend at that time, he was like, "Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. Let's hold on and see what happens." And a few months passed by, and while I was driving, one of my sisters was in the vehicle, and we were talking about life, and we were talking about love, and it felt natural to come out to her, and I did, and I got a really beautiful reaction. She accepted me right then and there, and she was even excited that I was gay. She was like, "Oh my God, I have a gay brother." So that was great. But then the other two, I just didn't want to. I was still scared. Then shortly after, the the first sister I came out to, she came along. She was fully accepting, and everything was great. And the third sister that found out about me, she made me, or she basically said that she knew all along, and she fully accepted me. So that was great. And then the last sister, the baby, she was young at that time, so we didn't say anything. She found out about me when I was already out of the house and I was already living with my partner, and the girls told her, so that was good. And having their support means a lot to me. I feel that if I didn't have that support, it would be very difficult to navigate life. But I'm very grateful for them, and I love them so much, and I know and I feel their love for me. Um, whenever I was 20, whenever I was 20, I began to go out more with my friends. We would go out to the gay clubs and whatnot. But there was one time where we were getting ready. I was getting ready to go out. They were gonna pick me up, and my dad walks in and he's like, "You can't go out tonight. You have to work tomorrow. We're gonna be up at 5 in the morning, and we're gonna be at the restaurant by 6, and we're gonna have a long day because we have brunch. I think it was OU weekend, so it was gonna be super busy. So I really didn't want to argue, so I called up my friends and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm not gonna go. I have to wake up early tomorrow and go to work." So I didn't go out that night. The following day, I did have a real busy day at work, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't go. I'm glad I listened to my dad. Then after work, this was like around 3 p.m. I came back to the house, I took a shower, and I got on the phone to talk to my friends about the previous night. When I got on the phone, they were still in bed, so they didn't call me back until like 4 or 5. When I got on the phone with them, they were sharing with me how a great night they had the previous night and how they met this guy that was going to be perfect for me. And they mentioned that, we were going to arrange something to go out so I could meet him. This was like in the end of a year. I think it was the end of 2003. So the the year ended, the new year began, and they never spoke about this friend ever again. So I was like, I guess it wasn't meant to happen. Then during like in February, I went out with my friends again, and whenever we got into the club, I spotted somebody that caught my eye, and I was like, "Ooh, I like him." Didn't think much of it. I came to the corner with my friends, and we were dancing. Where um, a few minutes later, one of my friends touches my shoulder, and she's like, "Junior, I want for you to meet." And when I turned around, it was that guy that I had liked. So we began to talk. We were dancing. We got to know each other. Um, we became friends. We bonded real quick. A good friendship was, flourishing from that. And to make the long story short in that aspect, him and I began to go out and we became an official couple. And that was the first time that I had a boyfriend. And I was excited. So I would bring him to the house, but he would come to my house as a friend. He was just a friend. Like no one knew about me. That's what my parents didn't know about me. So he was just a friend that was visiting. Then one day, we were getting ready to go to a funeral on my dad's family, and my boyfriend was like, "I'll go with you." So my boyfriend and I were at his place, and we decided to drive to the funeral home together. We never paid attention that my dad was in the minivan with my sisters and my mom. So when we were getting close to the funeral home, we were at a red light, and at the red light, my boyfriend gave me a peck like this, super fast, nothing more than that. And as soon as the light turned green, he saw that my dad drove by, and he was like, "Your dad saw us right now." I made eye contact with him. And I'm like, "No, that can't be possible because if that would have been the case, the girls would have called." He's like, "No, do you mind if I just don't go in? I don't feel comfortable." And I'm like, "No, that's fine. If you don't want to go in, that's fine. How about we'll just meet each other afterwards?" He's like, "Yeah, we can do that." So I get out of the truck and I go into the funeral home. I spot my mom and my dad and the girls, and they acted like nothing. Normally, my mom and I walk together, so it was normal. Nothing changed. So I was like, okay, we're good. I think he probably didn't see things right. When it's our turn to go view the body, we do that, and then after that, we go to the very end of the funeral house, and I by this time no one's behind us. It's just us. And then my dad begins to cry. So what I do is I put my arm over him to kind of like say I'm here for you, but he does this. He pushes me off, and in that moment I confirmed that in reality he did see us and he was really upset. But of course he wasn't going to act um he wasn't going to react to it there at the funeral home. So then I got a little scared and I kind of like was thinking, what do I do next? And everything was already done, so we are going to head back home. And I was walking and then he tells me, "Hey, help your grandma." So I walk over there and I grab his mom by the arm and we're walking out together. And we're walking out together, I see my parents behind the minivan in the parking lot, and he's telling her. I couldn't hear anything that they were saying because they were that far away, but he was like, "I saw them, I saw them," and she was kind of like, "No, no, that's not no." So I get to the minivan, I get in the driver's seat, and I actually drove home. My mom was next to me looking out the window. She never looked at me. And then my dad and the girls were in the back of the minivan. And we were listening to music on the way home. But both of my parents were looking out the window, just kind of like daydreaming. And I was just driving, singing along, but I was, very scared. We finally get to the house, and I rush into the restroom. And I lock myself in the restroom, myself in the mirror, and I tell myself, Junior, life is going to change completely effective today. Like, there's no turning back. Your life is not going to be the same. And, I heard, I heard conversations outside, and I couldn't really hear what they were saying because they were walking outside of the house. And I was like, something's up. So then I hear my dad walking down the hall, passing the restroom and heading to his room. So at that moment, I come out, and when I come out, the girls are like, "Let's go outside. We need to talk." By the time I get outside, all of my sisters are crying, and they're kind of like, "What's what? How did this happen? When did this happen? Why were you making out with your boyfriend in public like that, knowing that we have family around that area?" And I was like, "It wasn't even like that." I was trying to explain myself, and then one of my sisters like, "Let's call Monica. Monica's my best friend. Let's call Monica so she can come and see if we can spend the night with her." So then Monica comes, and then I tell her what happened, and then she's like, "Well, let's go to your boyfriend and tell him what happened." So he, we met up at the parking lot in Kroger, and I tell him everything, and he's like, "See, I told you that he saw us." And we were, I was really scared, so he was kind of like hugging me, telling me that everything was gonna be okay. And we began to like think of options. And Monica was like, "Well, you're gonna go stay with my sister. You're gonna live with her right now. Let's not. Let's see what happens." And then my boyfriend at the time was like, "Well, you know what? You have me. Come live with me. I know we haven't been with each other that long, but let's just give it a try." So I ended up spending the night with him. And during that night, I was just kind of like coming to terms that my life was completely going to change. And I remember that the following morning, I woke up to a message from my sister, and she's like, "Hey, my parents want you to come back." So then I look at him like, "They want me to go back." And he's like, "Well, maybe that's a good thing. How about you just go back, see what's going on?" And then I was like, "Okay, I think I'm going to do that." So I come back to the house, and I was here for a good week. But during that week, it was like complete silence towards me, no type of communication, acknowledgement towards me. And whenever I would walk into a room and both mom and dad were there, they would literally get up and walk to a different room. Like they didn't want me to be around. So that made me feel very unwanted, unwelcomed. And I was like, I don't think I can last here that long. And but knowing the fact that I had my boyfriend there willing to take me in, it made me feel a little bit more, I guess, confident about that option. So a week passed by, and then one of my parents called me into the room, and then one of them was, "Hey, so I'm sorry, but we can't accept you here. Like, we don't accept that. You should stay in the closet, and I think that it's best if you go." I'm not gonna say which one said that, because I feel that in reality they both kind of did, because if one is saying that, the other doesn't agree and should step in. That didn't happen. So if you didn't say anything, was pretty much because you agree. So in all reality, you both kicked me out of the house. So I left and I moved into the apartment with my boyfriend at the time, and that alone was a different experience, and it was like a learning process, because now you have to learn how to live with someone else and get accustomed to the way of how they do things in life. And I remember that maybe 6 months into me being out of the house, my boyfriend at the time was like, "Hey, have you tried talking to your parents? Have you even tried to have a conversation with them?" And I would say, well, no, it's not that easy. They're not gonna be open for that. They wouldn't do that. You're like, well, you'll never know if you don't give it a try. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I came to the house and I was like, hey, can I speak with you two in private? And we headed to what was my old room. And then they're sitting. My mom was sitting down and my dad was standing. And I began to say, "Hey, it's been 6 months," and before I could even finish that sentence, one of them was like, "You know what? Don't even waste your breath. We will never accept somebody like you in this family. So just," it, they walked out. Being that young, I didn't know how to defend myself. I remember I just cried and walked out and left. And little stories like that, I have so many. There was one time where there was a family party happening, and of course we all got invited, and they were in the minivan. When I got to the house, I parked the truck at that moment, and the minivan was open and all the girls were inside. So I got in the minivan and I went to the very back seat, and we were there for a good 5 minutes, and then one of the girls was like, let me call them to let them know that we're ready, because my parents were inside the house. So they call and they pick up, and they're like, "Hey, we're ready." And my sister hung up the phone, and she's like, "They're not gonna come out. They're not gonna come out because they said that if he's here, that they're not gonna go anywhere." So once again, I began to cry. I got really hurt, and I left because I was like, "I'm not gonna ruin my sister's night. Let them go." So I ended up leaving that night. Of course, we the girls talked to me, so they convinced me to meet them there. So we ended up being there for a bit, but those situations really are stuck with me. And every time that I remember those moments, I go back to those moments where that feeling of me having this sense of I'm on my own. Like I don't have anybody. I don't have anyone support. Um, the girls were younger at that time, so they themselves weren't that strong. I feel now that they're my number one protectors and they have my back 1000%. But in that time, we're young, so we didn't know how to defend ourselves, even like at that moment, from our parents. And of course, in a new relationship, you're learning things about your partner. And we had moments where we didn't get along, we had moments where we would fight. And the fact that you have those specific moments with your partner, but then at the same time you don't have that support back home, you feel very vulnerable, and you feel like it's a really disgusting feeling to just feel like you don't belong. And I remember that would be I would just be by myself in these moments, and I was like, no, I need to find strength to be strong. And I'm so glad that I went through all that, because it built me how I am now. And I feel like I'm very strong and I stand my ground and I know how to defend myself now. But in those moments, I can tell you it was so difficult. And when I think about how someone could possibly be going through that now, I just want you to know that you're not alone. There's one thing about the LGBTQ plus community is that we create our family, and know that you can create your family. The friends become family, coworkers become really good friends, and sometimes your family members are just family because you share the same blood, but they don't act like anything towards you. In those moments where this 20-year-old, when the entire family knows that you've been kicked out of the house, that's the perfect moment for any other adult to step in and come and say, hey, I'm not sure what's going on with your house, but know that I'm here for you. You have my support. I'm here to talk to you. Or try to have a conversation with the parents like, hey guys, what's going on? I know this is difficult, but let's remember that these are our children. We have to be here for them. There was nothing like that. And whenever, luckily, I have nothing against my parents. I love them so much. And we're in a different place now. But I would always hear, don't judge your parents. um, Understand how they were raised. I get all that and I do, but I also, on the flip side, there's also a reflection that they need to acknowledge is that whenever you become a parent, you have to consider all the different um, possibilities, and your child should be the most precious thing you have, and it doesn't matter, like that's your child. So hearing the narrative where you're my child and only I know the pain of having a child, and no one's going to care for you like we do, all that went out the window in that specific moment. And it's beautiful to see how I know a lot of gay men, and their stories for the most part have been real beautiful. They have the full support of the parents. They didn't go through what I went through. I'm so glad that they didn't go through what I went through, because it takes someone really, I guess, really strong to go through that and not hold grudges and be super forgiving about all that. um like I mentioned, it breaks my heart whenever I think of those moments, but at the same time, I can see all this, the strength that I gathered and the knowledge that I gathered from those moments. And I want to let you know that you're not alone. And if you are going through that, if you are thinking of opening up about your sexuality, know that I'm here for you to, hit me up and call me, send me a text. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about anything. And I hope you guys have a phenomenal week, and I will see you guys next week. Talk to y'all soon.